What is up, y'all? It's your boy Aniki coming at you with another video. Shout out to my boy Juno who drew the art that's being used as a thumbnail. You can go ahead and check his art on Juno Draws. I'll be posting a link to the Twitter and Instagram so that you can go ahead and follow. Also, he's the only person who responds to my tweets about the LCS and other esports. That said, this is a video on Jigokuraku, aka Hell's Paradise, a manga that's available on the Jump Plus. And unfortunately, though, it is only available on the site as it is an 18 plus series due to the amount of the fact that people actually have sex. There, I said it. But that's not the main sell of the series. In fact, that's just a part of the combat system. And I mean that literally. Let me explain. Jigokuraku is a series that has a lot of tenets, and the power system itself is based in Taoism. And so, due to the fact that Jigokuraku is a series structured around Taoism and its beliefs, there's a certain level of harmonization of energies of yin and yang, balancing your qis, as it can also be referred to. And as male or female, it's assumed that you have yin or yang energy. The act of copulation and coming together allows for the true harmonization and having of both energies within the bodies to reach enlightenment. This series even goes further to make sure, in the sense that, like Taoism and its beliefs, that you need to acknowledge the entirety or the whole of a person. In the same way that you need to acknowledge like the power of the yin and the yang, you need to take both the strong and the weakness within yourself in order to become one and to be at your best. This is best demonstrated later in the series when a character actually suffers memory loss, and that erasure of their progression as a person actually lowers their Tao and makes them weaker. So this isn't just like some arbitrary, you need to make sure you achieve these things, and then no, like this is actually structured around these ideologies. And furthermore, because it's based in religion, the series goes ahead and is able to weave the introduction explanation of the battle system into character dialogue in a lot of ways that are a lot more natural than you would normally see. Where, sure, you can have people going through like blatant instruction in some series. In this case, it's moreover them piecing together the clues of the environment around them, the context clues that they're given by their opponents as they go through this journey on an island, and then taking those, figuring out which religious symbols and their meanings, and applying that to themselves, and eventually exploring and learning more about their types of Tao and the ways they can apply it to survive in the environment they're in. But before we jump all the way to Tao, I should probably mention that the premise of this series is simple. Well, ish. In the first chapter, you're introduced to Gabimaru the Hollow. He's the protagonist of this series, and you very quickly become acquainted with the idea that he's a veteran MC, which is actually my favorite kind of main character, I believe. There's something about characters who are running on New Game Plus that just hits different for me. Now, Gabimaru is the most esteemed ninja from the village of Ibogakure. In the process, though, he's managed to be captured more or less and scheduled for execution. However, due to meeting Sagiri, the female protagonist of the series, he gets an opportunity. As a sword tester or a member of the Yamada Aisamon, she, under the orders of the shogunate, offers him a deal. If he can go to an island and is selected, or if he is selected and goes to this island and acquires the elixir of immortality, brings it back to the shogun, he will be pardoned of all crimes he's ever committed. And eventually, of course, he passes that examination process, no brainer. Him and 7 other convicts, paired with 8 executioners, so a total of 8 criminals and 8 executioners, set out on an island under the pretext of finding the elixir of immortality and doing their best to get the pardon. Knowing that only one of them will be able to acquire the pardon, it is only a matter of time before groups break down and fall apart. Now, the series' strengths, of course, stem from the fact that it has a massive amount of world building, especially for a series that takes place on a single island for the most part, where you have characters having to learn about the world around them, what the foliage means, why the different species of animals that they're encountering are the way they are, and in addition to that, just simply having to survive, because what their opponents do, there's such an information gap, such a power gap, where this isn't one of those series where you just see people getting random buffs or anything like that. It's actually more about It's all explained in such a way that you can't help but understand the philosophies that it talks about and incorporate principles such as Buddhism's the middle way. You can look into that if you want to, but that's more, think about like the gray Jedi code. If for those of you who are Star Wars fans, maybe you kind of, can help people out in the comments a little if they, ask me what that example's about. But that's more about not necessarily neutrality, but balance itself. So by keeping your soul, your mind, etc. in balance, so can you. Now, the characterization throughout this series is a bunch of characters that, because, of course, this is a bunch of executioners who are also samurai effectively, though they are treated like Ronin, obviously we get to have and play around with the swordsman tropes a lot, and this actually has my favorite example of the Zatoichi archetype in Shion, who is both a blind swordsman and a sensei trope, while also being a breath of fresh air, even if he is a little overly reliant on his puns as a joke. That being said, I think there's a lot of growth, and since it's it takes place between this like 17th and 19th century due to the era it's like set in. So what that leads to is genuine conversations on the role of women, the way that they're treated in their societies, whether or not the Sagiri, as the female protagonist, should even be the leader of the Yamada Asaman, or whether she should just go home, give up the sword, and just be an incubator for the next generation of the Yamada. As well as different aspects of like colorism coming into play, and in general the shogun's ideologies and the way that the era is structured around pretense and class. These characters, as they go through this journey and deal with these dangers, the samurai and the criminals are forced to reconcile and come together and work at different points, which leads to them having to really sit around and think about who they are as people, what they're trying to achieve, and how they feel about that era. Some people may think that's a little odd, but it is what it is. The way that it captures having to decide whether you want to follow along with everything you've been inundated with by society your entire life, or if you want to go ahead, reach out, develop, and become a better person in your own way, is a genuine breath of fresh air within the story, because it never feels contrived. Everybody has gone through these life or death experiences, been forced to acknowledge the dangers and help each other out. So when they make these sacrifices, when they give up certain things, or they decide to go on a particular path to help each other, it's only natural. There's a certain level of stakes to the series that as it keeps exploring, or as you keep going throughout it, you just keep finding out new ways in which there's dangers and threats that, I'll be honest, like it's very unique in its approach. From the fact that flora and can actually be massively important in the series, like the way the flowers bloom. There's a certain level of mystery and even borderline horror aspects to seeing people's bodies and ships and things like that, where they've got literal flowers and vines blooming out of them, because that's just how their body's been structured or made now. So I would highly recommend you kind of give this series a chance. The action sequences are honestly phenomenal. The art is stellar. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, you may watch this video, and yes, the art that I've been posting on my fleets for the last couple days has all been Jigokuraku. I'm a huge fan of the series. It's actually one of the things that I've been doing is actually a reread of it for my personal greatest manga of 2020 video, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's actually coming up a lot better now that I've done this reread again than a lot of the series that I read. And I would honestly say that if this were in Weekly Shonen Jump and did not get gated by the 18 plus app, it would be one of the most talked about series that is available from Shueisha. So I know that it's a bit of a pain to try to have to read it on the Viz site, because you basically have to be at a computer or open up a Google Chrome browser on your phone. But I promise you that if you give this series a chance and you go ahead and explore the action dynamics, the way character relationships and bonds are made, and the certain level of pragmatism, because Gabimaru is honestly one of my favorite main characters that I've encountered in a long time, possibly my favorite ongoing current main character. I promise you will find a story in which you could genuinely sink your teeth into, with themes that are worth exploring, and who knows, it might even cause you to think about your own beliefs and maybe your own weaknesses and how you can balance that out. Because I think it is a good series for giving yourself a reason to pause, introspect, and see the value of who you are in your entirety. what makes you weak and what makes you strong, and then how do those things blend together to create the person that you are today. So I think Jigokuraku's combination of excellent combat mechanics, the beautiful characterization from people's different indoctrinations, whether they're from ninja villages, whether they're samurai, whether they're simply people who grew up in they're bandits, mountain folk, whatever the case may be, all these different backgrounds get to come together and have their cultures clash and their ideologies really peeled back and explored so they can figure out who and where they want to go. So this video is already 10 minutes long, but I didn't want to spoil anything too major. Obviously, there's going to be some character deaths. There's yet to be a character death that happened in this series that I didn't feel something for. The characters are truly, like, when a character dies, it doesn't feel cheap or like it's just there for shock or edge value, but it's genuinely a character having to accept the end of their journey, or rather a character who's doing what they feel they need to do and they are justified in taking this approach. So yeah, the villain concepts are glorious, but it's really hard to explain to you the villains of this series without getting in a massive spoiler territory. But understand that their intellect, their threat, their presence, they managed to turn the notion of showing up naked into not something that you would go, oh wow, look, this page has boobs on it. No, when they show up, whether they're naked or not, whether the boobs are out or the boobs are gone, when they pull up, it's terror. It is fear. You are concerned. You know that the characters are in danger, and there comes a point where, like, no, like, this is just terrifying. You don't care. The series has managed to, in a way, weave nudity and all these other things into it without making it feel like an overly sexualized, prop piece or like fan service. It's just their comfort in what they are and who they are and how they operate. So yeah, hopefully you guys go ahead and give this series a look. It's Jigokuraku, Hell's Paradise. You can find it on the Viz site. I'm sure there's pirate sites with it somewhere, but I don't know any of them and I don't care to because I read it on the Viz app. It is what it is. But remember, 18 plus. It's translated by Caleb Cook, who's the guy who does the translations for My Hero Academia. So pretty solid, consistent translations on that part too. So overall, it's a phenomenal series. It's probably a solid 9 out of 10, where we're getting closer and towards the end of the wrap up. It even includes a nice Wukong archetype that manages to not be overbearing, that I was able to enjoy too. Because again, when Wukongs are side characters, I love them, but when they're mains, they frustrate me. So yeah, hope you guys are having a wonderful day. There was no Church of MHA this week due to the My Hero Academia break, but I wanted to give you guys at least one video. Hopefully we'll have a second one coming out today too. So, that being said, hopefully see you later. Have a wonderful day. Anaki out.